AP classes are advertised as harder classes, but in my opinion, that's honestly misleading. They're not really harder because you have to do more work, which you do, but I honestly think they're harder because you have to think differently to do them. And also, for every AP class, you need a different set of skills that can help you pass them. And before taking the class, it's honestly hard to figure out, do I have the set of skills needed to take this class? So I'm going to talk about what my experience in the AP system has been as someone who's almost at the end of her junior year and has taken over 7 AP classes, and what framework really works for me when I'm taking a class like this. So in this video, I want to break down what AP classes are actually like for people who are considering, should I take this class, should I not, and what really determines success in them. And I'm not saying I'm an expert in these, but I think I've gotten to the point where I pretty much know the system of how to study well for these kind of classes, because it's not the same as how I used to study for classes maybe freshman year or middle school, or even some of the classes I'm taking right now that aren't AP. So first, what are AP classes actually like compared to what people say about them? At the end of my freshman year, when I was about to go into classes like AP World, AP Calc AB, etc., a lot of people told me AP classes meant so much more homework. And though that is true, it depends so much on the teacher you get. And honestly, it's so important what teacher you get that I would recommend truly just asking the people who've taken the class before, what teacher teaches it, what are they like, grading policies, how do they grade homework, assignment, tests, quizzes, because all of that will determine your AP experience. Because before I took a lot of my classes, I researched them online on Reddit, etc., and tried to see what people thought about them, and the responses were wildly different. Like, you'll go online and you see someone that they didn't do any work throughout the entire year of taking AP Physics, okay, maybe not AP Physics, but any AP, and they thought it was really easy, while someone else thought it was an incredibly hard class. And that's honestly the same for me, because even in the same school, I've seen people who, for the same class, have had such an easy teacher and such a hard teacher. And even though that's not part of the College Board system, they're mostly preparing you to take the actual exam. Your time in the class is also important, because I know people want to get an A in these classes, but it depends so much on the teacher. You can have a teacher where you put in so much work and there's just no output because they're biased, or just they care about more things than others, like they care about more homework than tests, or vice versa. So I think you can't just generally categorize AP classes as just having more homework, because I've had so many classes where there barely any homework but the content is so difficult, or the other way around. Also, for a lot of my classes, I thought it would be in the course description when you're signing up for a class, they'll usually show you oh, this class is expected to have about 2 hours per homework per night, and that can vary a lot. I know people already know this, but for a lot of my classes, even though they're AP, for example, I'm taking AP Chemistry this year, the teacher doesn't really care about homework and it's not graded. So technically, though there is homework, most people just do it towards the end of the unit to practice for the test. So I would say just don't go off what you see online about what classes are hard, because it truly so much depends on the teacher. And it's also not like harder APs have more homework. And I think just some of the hardest parts of the classes are the in-class tests, and they are honestly, at least in my school, way harder than the AP exam itself. On purpose, I think it's designed that way so that if you do really well on tests, you're bound to get a 5 on the AP exam. But I think just the hardest part, AP classes in my experience, is the test that they have. For example, for AP World, a lot of people just got knocked down points because of the test. And for example, for some of my math classes that are AP, my teacher just grades incredibly hard on the test, but then the exam was so incredibly light, because this is a general theme across most College Board classes, that on the AP exams, especially on the FRQs, it's really easy to gain points, and they don't mark you down for much stuff. You have to have the bare minimum answer. So these classes will just prepare you for in a way that it's easy to get the points in the end, but during the classes itself, it's so hard sometimes, especially when teachers are picky about you have to have this, and this in the answer, even though in the AP exam they won't actually care. So that's something I've seen that's been hard across all my classes, whether or not they're easy or difficult. But again, it just truly depends on your teacher. So now, what actually determines your success in an AP class? In my opinion, it's not just about the content. A lot of it is just synthesizing ideas, which makes it an AP class, because or else you'd just be learning the content and knowing how to apply it. But in a lot of my harder classes, for example, AP Chemistry, you need to know and remember so much different content across units and be able to synthesize it well, and not just know concepts at surface level, just being able to understand how they work. And though people may say it's not true, you can just know a little bit about how everything works to get through, I think it's honestly way easier in the end if you're able to go in depth with all this knowledge and know intuitively how this works, especially for more conceptual classes like AP Chemistry and AP World, even when I took AP World, a lot of it was just synthesizing ideas across time periods and knowing how things connect. So if you don't have that like instinctive feel for how these concepts connect, it's gonna be way harder because you won't be able to retrieve them when you need to. For other classes, however, like I took AP Calc AB last year and I'm taking BC this year, it's not that much about connecting ideas. It's about just knowing how to do the problem, knowing what steps need to be shown, and just doing problem after problem after problem so that you can guarantee you get the correct answer every time. It's not that much synthesizing ideas in more conceptual classes like AP World and AP Chem. Also, while you're taking the class itself, knowing your teacher's teaching style saves a lot of time. If you know that there's someone who won't get into really the depths of the like concept in class, you know you'll have to watch a couple of YouTube videos after class to cover it all. But if there's someone who's going in depth, just make sure you're listening during class and taking good notes. From the classes I've taken so far, I would group them into 3 main categories. So the first would be like really conceptual classes where you need to have a good grasp of what you're learning and like just have a good understanding of it. So in this, I would put classes like AP World History, AP US History, AP Chemistry, all these just classes where there's so many ideas that you need to know and know how they connect with each other. Because for example, in AP World, they'll teach you so many things happening across time periods and they won't get into the specifics, which means you need to get a good understanding of what the broader ideas are of each time period and how they interconnect with each other. And then in AP Chemistry, even though I'm doing it this year, I can already see how in many of the FRQs you have to use concepts from way earlier and then connect it with your knowledge of what's happening right now. And though I would say it isn't that difficult because most of the things follow a similar type of connection, you just have to know a good understanding and be able to repeat the knowledge, and things like active recall really help in these kind of classes which are more conceptual. The second category I would say are like the grind classes where you just need to do problem after problem after problem, and this mostly I would say only applies to math but also psychology, I think, because it's just a lot of vocab terms. And though I haven't done psychology as an actual class, I'm self-studying it right now, I think a lot of it is just knowing the frameworks of problems so that you know what to do when studying, and you can just do problem after problem after problem and soon you'll see like a connection and it'll be like just really easy to pick up in most cases. And then the final category I would say is like classes that are known as the easy AP classes, and the only one I've taken in this category is AP Seminar, but I would say that you don't need to get a good understanding of things at all because a lot of the things they're teaching you, so for example like how to research and how to write research essays and research papers, you already know a lot of it from your previous English classes, and it's a lot of just making sure you do everything that's on the rubric so that you're not messing up and losing easy points. However, I know AP Seminar sounds like an easy class, but I would not recommend it at all from my experience because even though it was incredibly simple, I think it was just like a waste of my time because maybe it's just me, I hate writing research papers, and AP Seminar was just something that like it was just in the back of my head always, I have to get this done, I have to get this done. And there's not, depending on your class, like I didn't have that many deadlines that we had to go through throughout the year, so a lot of my work was done at the end. But I know a lot of my other friends who really enjoyed it because they enjoy more like free roaming classes where you just have to keep working on a project, where I'm someone who wants like tests and quizzes and just hates just having a long stretched out project that I have to complete by a deadline. Like I'm not good with that. But for those kind of classes, I wouldn't say it's that much like knowledge and content learning. I don't know that much about the AP exam though because I didn't take it for AP Seminar, but that's what I think about that class. Also, talking about falling behind, I know a lot of teachers are really picky about that, and I've had a lot too who always keep you on top of it, but AP classes are designed so that you can finish the concept by late March, early April, or even before that sometimes, so that you really have the time to study and get a lot of the things done. And though it is content heavy, I think it's fairly easy once you've done the content in class before to review it and keep reviewing it, and to review it before the test. Like, it doesn't take as much time as people leave for AP studying. I would say people start studying, I've heard, even 2 to 3 months ahead, which I don't think is needed. And especially for semester-long classes, like I'm studying AP Macro right now, and I started studying pretty early because it was one of the first classes I started self-studying, but it honestly isn't that much content. So even if you feel like you're falling behind, I don't think it's that big of a deal because it's fairly easy to catch up on the content for most AP classes. Like, don't fall too far behind, obviously, but for example, for my AP Chemistry class, he doesn't really have any quizzes or homeworks or anything in between tests, so most people don't pay attention until the day before the test. And I've been doing this for almost the whole year now, and nothing bad has happened. Like, I feel like it's pretty easy to catch up for the content in AP Chem, because once you get the content through your head, it's just basically doing problems and just making sure you know how different things connect, like I said earlier. But you know yourself best. Like if you're someone who just really needs to keep up day by day and make sure you're getting that practice done, then maybe take less AP classes and then have that system work for you. But I think I'm someone, and a lot of my friends at my school too are also, again, depends on your teacher, but it just depends like how well you are at just catching up and going through content quickly. But I think for a lot of AP classes isn't that hard. But for classes like AP World, definitely don't fall behind, because it can be incredibly hard to catch up. There's just a lot of content in these AP history classes, so I think that's just way harder. But for other classes, macro, psych, I don't think that's that relevant. Even Lang isn't that much content entirely. Like it's just practice, essay after essay. Just make sure you know the essays well. So for those kind of classes, don't worry about falling behind. Also, for my friends, a lot of the reason I see them not doing well in these classes is because they don't know where to prioritize their time, which also happened to me a lot in the beginning. But you need to know like how to adapt with what your teacher's teaching, because after a while you'll do unit 1, unit 2, you'll not really know how the class is being taught, but as you get to unit 4, unit 5, unit 6, you'll see that when the teacher is teaching these things, those are more likely to show up on the test and eventually will be showing up on the exam. So it's important to go deep into those topics and really cover and make sure you have it internalized in your head. But if you see something that's mentioned once or twice, I see a lot of people being like, oh, I have no clue what this means, let me search it up, and watch like 3 YouTube videos on it. If you have the time, yes, do that. But like a lot of the time, it's just a waste of time just having something that's maybe going to cost you 1 or 2 points in the end and spending so much time on it, where you could be prioritizing other things that will be more than 50% of what the exam is. A way this can really help too is College Board, I think, gives like breakdowns of each unit and how often they're found. And for AP World, that was really useful for me, because at the end, like, I think the units were like globalization, Cold War. I think globalization was just almost really less, I think less than 10% of the exam, and I didn't really care that much about it because obviously I already knew most of the information because it was in the last like 10-20 years of history. So I barely studied it because I knew in the thing that units 3 and 4 and 5, I don't know exactly which ones, but those ones were going to be so much more relevant, and obviously I saw them a million times on the test, and I could say they were worth a lot of points. And even for my midterms and finals, it was the same thing. So just know where you have to spend your time when you're studying. And then finally, I would say my last thing is just do questions. I know for some classes I said that it's more important to keep doing questions, and for some it's less, but for all of them I would say even if you don't know the content completely, just start doing questions, and you'll see patterns in the questions, and then you can learn the content by doing questions. At the same time, you know what you're doing bad on. A lot of the times, just before my chem tests, I keep bringing this up because most people in my class just study the day before the chem test. I just keep doing problems and problems and problems, and I'll see so many of the problems, like duplicates of them, on the exam. And through doing those problems, I'll remember these core concepts, because when you're just studying the content, you don't know which concepts are more important and which concepts are less important. You just know that you have to study all of this, which can seem really daunting. But I would say once you have like a good overview of the content, maybe you don't understand a couple things, maybe you do understand some things, just keep doing problems, because that'll be so much more helpful than just going over the content, because then you don't know what you know and what you don't know. And then for classes like Lang, again, just keep doing essays. That's like the most important tip. Even though I'm not done with Lang yet, like before our final for last semester was just doing a Q2, and I just kept doing practice Q2s, and once you have structure in your mind, it's so much easier to go through them. So overall, if you could just get one thing from this video, it would be to know how you study and know what the most important things are on the exam and in the course overall, so that you can maximize points. It's all about maximizing points, because so many of the concepts, they'll take over half of the exam while others won't take that much time. And again, just by doing problems and problems and problems, it'll be so much easier to just grind through them and make it so much easier for yourself. That was most of my knowledge from the AP classes I've taken so far. Hopefully I learned more as I finish some up this year and continue on next year. but I hope all of this knowledge was helpful to you guys who are figuring out what classes to take and what works best for you. And I know a lot of these classes can be intimidating, but honestly I find them easy in the way that they're structured, and like there's so many resources online, and especially Reddit. And for a lot of my other classes, like I'm taking regular US history this year because I couldn't handle it on my course load, it's so much harder to study because I don't even know what the teacher is thinking in her mind, and I don't know what she's gonna put on the test. But for AP exams, there's hundreds and hundreds of resources and past exams that you can look at, so you know exactly what to do. So I think it's one of the easiest things to study for. Maybe the concepts aren't easy, but it's just so easy to prepare for because there's so much knowledge and content and things you can use online, and everything is so structured. You'll find like a million 5-week AP study plans, which I would say do it all as much as you can, because anything you do in the end won't hurt you. It'll just help you out during the exam, but just know what the most important parts of the course are. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.